It really dates back a lot longer than 20 years. I mean, going back to the turn of the century, starting with the rubber industry, with companies like Goodrich, Goodyear. I mean, everybody knows Akron was the tire capital of the world. In addition to that, there was research going on. University of Akron had a pioneering polymer program. It goes back to like 1910. When you bring those things together, people were looking at polymers, looking at chemicals. We had some pioneering work in polyvinyl chloride in the 1920s. It really goes back a long way. We're sort of bringing together the research, the companies, the material suppliers, the machinery companies, all in one place, and it just became a fertile place for a lot of innovation. New products were happening, new companies were being started, things like that. Well, it's a really important role. It's very important for Northeast Ohio, not just with Akron, but also with Case, with Kent State University. You know, there's a lot of graduate students who come here. They do research. A lot of undergraduate students. I mean, this is probably one of the few places in the world where you would find high school students who think, I might want to have a career in polymer engineering. I mean, they have the understanding that it's important. They know that Akron is a center of that industry. So, you know, just sort of the bringing together people from all over the world and people locally. A lot of important research gets done here. There's also a lot of sort of hands-on use of equipment. You know, people understand the processes here. It's not just esoteric research. The companies are involved in the community, in the college. College is involved in the community. A lot of the research people, a lot of the professors at the University of Akron involved in polymer engineering are also active in groups like the Society of Plastics Engineers. So they know local companies and they know what they're working on, and so there's a good connection between the school and with local companies and with what actual hands-on things that people are doing. Yeah, some of it there was sort of some actual connections to it in looking at things like tire cord. Tire cord is not made out of rubber, it's made out of polyester. So companies like Goodyear were involved in developing polyester markets for polyester, and then that took off in different directions, in fabrics, in film. Polyester is used for a lot of different things, but initially the reason why Goodyear was interested in it was because potential in tire cord. Same thing for polyurethane. People were looking for alternatives to rubber. Some of this was during World War II. So they're looking at PVC, they're looking at polyurethane, they're thinking, what if we didn't have access to the rubber, what sort of chemicals could we use to make products that are essential to the war or essential to industry? So they're looking at different chemicals, and the polymer industry was a result of that. Well, some of the interesting new things that are going on right now would be work in nanotechnology, nano composites. We're talking about taking really, really small additives, adding it to plastics, changing the chemistry, changing how the material behaves. So that could have implications to things like lightweight automotives. You can maybe take a plastic that you hadn't been thinking about previously and use it in something like a car panel, a car door, something, because that gives it better properties and heat resistance and things like that. So, and some of that is sort of high-tech stuff, but it's starting to come into commercialization right now. A lot of solar power right now. There's a lot of research going on in solar power and in polymers used in different films. Another great example is lightweight electric vehicles. A lot of the chemistry used in the batteries for lightweight vehicles involves polymers, and these are materials that they're trying to make the batteries smaller and give them longer range, so these vehicles can be more, so they can compete with conventional vehicles. So a lot of new research, a lot of things going on as a result of that. Oh yeah, I mean, plastics, medical is a very important market for plastics. There's a lot that's done. There's conventional things that people see when they go to the hospital. When you're seeing tubing and almost everything that's plastic. A lot of it, for safety reasons, it has to be single use, so they're throwing it away afterwards. And then there's also a lot of new products involving plastics where we're talking about implants, and we're talking about products where it has to have really specialized properties. So yeah, there's a lot of that. Some of the products, if you were a molder who's serving that market, you might be making something that's smaller volumes, or you might be making something that's really, really tiny, and yet because of safety issues, it's really important to have the material just right, and to have, everything has to meet strict standards, FDA standards. So the result of it is really for North America, and it's an advantage because the companies who are involved in that market, if you've been in it for a while, you understand what's involved, how to meet the standards and everything. The past decade has not been a terrific decade, obviously, for a lot of the plastics companies. But really, I think the companies that are surviving today are doing so because they've discovered the markets where they need to be. They've discovered how to compete globally, internationally. They've become lean. They've become focused on the right places where they need to be. In a lot of cases, they've diversified their customer base so that they're not overly dependent on one market or one customer, and they've become specialized. Where you don't see as many plastics processors today who are just sort of shoot and ship, will make anything. They're more specialized. They'll have an area where this is what we do. This is our focus. This is what makes us different, so that we can compete globally. Whether it's something really, really fast time to market, or really specialized in design, or in having an understanding of the medical market or the automotive market, something like that. Well, there's a wide variety of jobs. There's locally in Northeast Ohio, there are some major material suppliers like PolyOne is a good example. There's some smaller compounders that do the same sorts of things. Those companies, they hire technicians, they hire engineers, they're hiring people who are involved in research, involving a lot of design work, polymer design, and things like that. So a lot of specialized things, a lot of cases where they're hiring people who have college degrees or who have specialized training. I think there's a pretty strong future. There's some things going on right now where you couldn't have predicted 5 years ago. The natural gas fracking, which is something that people are becoming more aware of. There's going to be an impact of that in Northeast Ohio, in North America. The result being materials will be less expensive. Plastics. Some companies that maybe were looking, if you're going to build a chemical plant that's going to make polymers, a few years ago you might have thought the best place to invest would be in a place like China. Right now, because of low-cost feedstocks as a result of the natural gas, companies are investing in North America right now in a big way. So the result, I think, is going to be that it's going to be helpful for sort of the entire plastics chain, supply chain. Materials are less expensive. That makes it more advantageous for companies to have suppliers here. And plus, right now, China, costs are increasing in China, so it's becoming less of an advantage to go there just for cost reasons. So if you're a company and you're supplying customers in North America, you're going to look at having suppliers in North America. So that's a positive right now for this region. Where they need that's a chain. And here, that's a chain. Here, custom, that's a chain. Here, custom, that's a chain. Here, custom, that's a here, custom, that's a here, custom, that's a here, custom, that's a here, custom chain, 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 that's a here, custom that's a here, custom chain, that's a here, custom chain, that's a here, custom chain.